Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. I have a special guest who made this movie called The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, and it's got a re-release. An updated version is out this week. It's Greg Palast is here. Hi, Greg.
Hey, how you doing, Jimmy?
It's great to have you. Let me read some of the great stuff, just so everybody knows what Greg Palast is all about.
All right.
He's an investigative reporter whose breaking stories appear on BBC television, The Guardian, and now Rolling Stone magazine. And I've used a lot of your reporting in my show, by the way, without even knowing it was you who did the reporting. You did all the great work
You owe me big.
I do. You did all the great work on the 2000 election in Florida and about how all those people got thrown off the roll, voting rolls, and it was illegal, and how nobody stood up for those people. There wasn't one senator who would sign the complaint. Anyway, you did great work on that. You're back with this movie, which is fantastic. And so tell me about this movie and the best democracy money can buy. But Trump stole the election by throwing people off the voting rolls through Crosscheck. Now, that's what I've been hearing. What have you been hearing?
Yeah, I'm the guy. So basically the film The Best Democracy Money Can Buy is about my investigations. It's live investigation, me on the trail for Rolling Stone, uncovering the original version of the film was here's how Trump's going to steal it. No one bought that. Everyone bought their party dress for Hillary's inaugural, but then he stole it. And so now this is the update, and the subtitle is called The Case of the Stolen Election. I was going to call it This Time Pay Attention. It's like, so it was like, yes, I was the guy. In fact, I do go back in the film through a cartoon version. The guy who did Who Framed Roger Rabbit drew the cartoon, a Saturday morning cartoon about how Jeb Bush and Katherine Harris removed tens of thousands of black men from the voter rolls of Florida, saying they were felons. Threw them off. That's how little Georgie W. became president. Now, how did Trump do it? He used, like you said, he used a system that I uncovered called Crosscheck. What's that? Trump says that millions of people voted many times, and people make fun of that. But I'm the only journalist that said, okay, if 3 million people voted twice, give me the list. It turns out they actually have a list of 3.6 million voters, 7.2 million names. They wouldn't give me the list. So, see the hat? I'm an investigative reporter. I got the list, and the lists are names like Maria Hernandez votes in Georgia, and then Maria Hernandez votes in Virginia, and they say, well, obviously Maria Hernandez is voting twice, as opposed to saying that's kind of a common name, except it's not common for Republicans. So, in fact, in that case, this is a real case. Maria Inez Hernandez is supposed to be the same voter as Maria Isabel Hernandez, and 2 million of the names have mismatched middle names. Juniors and seniors are matched, etc. But they use this. This is no joke. They use this to remove about 1.1 million people from the voter rolls. That was Michigan. And the other stuff, I go through.
How many voters were removed from the rolls in Michigan?
In Michigan, it was about 60,000. Now, Trump supposedly won Michigan by 10,700 votes. In not counting 60,000 removed. And by the way, I also go through, 'cause in the update of the film, the Best Democracy Money Can Buy, it's called The Case of the Missing Election. I go to Michigan and find out that 75,355 ballots were disqualified, never counted, because the machines broke down. 87 machines stopped counting the paper ballots they're scanned in Detroit, which is not exactly Trumpville, is it?
No.
So we know whose votes those were.
So, Greg, why wouldn't the most powerful political machine the history of the earth has ever known let that happen? Why wouldn't they challenge that? Why do you have this information? They must have this information, and yet they didn't do anything about it?
I got to tell you, I'm marching through the snow, finding the voters whose machines were busted. They said I couldn't put my the ballot machine. I saw the physical ballots that weren't counted that are marked Hillary because they go through scanners.
Right.
So Jill Stein of the Green Party raised money to have those ballots counted by an amazing machine called the human eyeball.
Okay.
And they started counting them. Hillary was going to win Michigan. Trump went to court. You'll see in my film, Trump goes to court with his lawyers and says, Jill Stein can't challenge the vote. You can count all the ballots you want. She ain't going to win. So the judge said, yeah, okay, she can't challenge the vote. So What about Secretary Hillary Clinton? What does she want to do? Her lawyers are in the courtroom in Lansing, Michigan, and they said, we're just here to observe. How about that? Which is kind of her campaign theme song, wasn't it?
Yeah. So why, again, what is your theory on why the Clinton machine, again, just like Al Gore, the same thing. Well, we know these elections through your reporting.
Yeah.
I know that the 2000 election in Florida was rigged, right? Because of exactly this thing.
Yeah, I did that for the BBC. That's right.
Yes. And this also, by the way, your reporting was featured in Michael Moore's documentary.
That's right.
Fahrenheit 9/11.
Yeah.
And why do you think it is that the Democrats don't push back more? Why did Hillary Clinton let this happen? Why didn't they do anything? I don't get this. This doesn't make sense.
Well, I did think that Al Gore should have screamed and hollered a little more. He did go to the United States Supreme Court. Hillary has said no U.S. candidate has ever challenged the vote, forgetting that Al Gore actually said, I was robbed in Florida. He did not. He was given my information, and he was talked out of using it because one of his insiders said, "Oh, Greg Palast, we hate that son of a bitch." But that's because I used to go after. Well, I would go after both parties. I went after Clinton and when I was in Britain, Tony Blair. But that's besides the point. He did challenge. By the way, John Kerry in 2004, they used another trick called voter caging, where they sent letters to black soldiers if they weren't home. The letters would be returned and their vote would be challenged because they were in Fallujah, where they're still allowed to vote, right? So it was stolen from Kerry in Ohio. And I have to say, while Kerry grabbed his ankles pretty quick, and I was with John Edwards at the time, and he was livid that they didn't challenge the vote in Ohio. But later, Kerry said, he was asked if he read my book and why'd you give up? He says, well, yeah, now I've read Palast's book. Yeah, he was right. I want Ohio. I want the presidency.
So again, it just.
But why don't they challenge?
But why? But still, no idea, no theory why right now Hillary Clinton wouldn't push back and try to get those votes counted, and if it would mean the presidency for her, and we would stop this existential threat to democracy and the world, and why wouldn't they do that again? And why would she have to piggyback on Jill Stein?
I think two things, and she didn't even jump on Jill's back because Jill paid for the recount. She just all she had to say, let it go ahead. So the thing is that. Well, remember with Bush v. Gore in the Supreme Court made a political decision. They picked our president. Officially, little Bush won by 537 votes in Florida, but he really won by one vote on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is just as bad today. So if Hillary would have challenged, it would have gone to the court, and that would have been that. Oh. And I think, but nevertheless, you have to challenge because it's not really her votes.
Right.
It's the votes of the black people in Detroit who got the shaft. It's the votes of the black people in Florida who got the shaft. It's the votes of the black people and the Hispanic people and the Asian Americans who got cross-checked out of Ohio. I saw this in Wisconsin. I saw it in Pennsylvania. I was in these places. And you know what? Maybe if they stood up once, it wouldn't happen again, or people would start getting angry again. We're losing the Voting Rights Act. That's in the film. But, so you follow me on this trail, in the film. And, in fact, part of the in the trail, by the way, while it's a documentary, it has, like, Rosario Dawson and Ice-T. And when I get confused on the campaign trail, Ice-T and Richard Belzer from CSI pop out of the TV screen and help me on the case. That really happened.
Richard Belzer, I think, is from Law and Order.
Yeah, Law and Order. Excuse me. Right, Law and Order. Richard, I apologize.
No problem.
I don't. But anyway, yeah. So Richard Belzer, Ice-T, jump out and help, and then I do encounter one of these double voters. Maria Hernandez. She confessed to voting in 2 states, but it turned out to be just Rosario Dawson putting me on.
Oh, okay.
But the thing is that this keeps happening. So I figure, okay. Since hardcore investigative reporting for BBC and The Guardian and the Rolling Stone didn't wake anyone up, so I figured I'd try humor, So here I am. Say something funny, Jimmy.
So, So you think it's because Hillary Clinton thought she would lose it to the Supreme Court?
No, I think that she thought that she would lose the cash. In other words, Al Gore became a billionaire after he lost. And he was told by from my information, I won't mention it, one of the wise old heads of the party. You challenge the American. You keep going after the Supreme Court, or you start using Palast stuff where you really say this really was stolen, not just procedural. You're toast. You won't get any corporate board jobs. You won't get any of the nice things that you'll just be, because he actually looked, we had a candidate that election was also stolen that I covered in Mexico, a guy known as AMLO, and he challenged, and he was destroyed. You can't, as Hillary Clinton is going along, just like the good Stalinists who went to their executions, when Stalin execute people, they would sing his praises on their way to their execution because they were part of the system that created them, that created Stalin. And Hillary Clinton is going to say forever, the American electoral system is the envy, that's a quote, envy of the world, because she's only been to Kazakhstan.
Ha ha! It's not the envy of the world. It doesn't pass muster
anywhere.
Anywhere.
In fact, people say, why didn't Jimmy Carter monitor the election, because he has his monitoring group. And he said, because you have to have a minimum democratic standard for us to send out our observers, and the United States does not qualify as having democratic elections. There you go.
So, Greg, I swear to God, nothing's ever going to happen, and this will just keep happening. I mean, people are yelling at me for voting for Jill Stein. That's why we got Donald Trump. But
I knew it was you. I was wondering how this all happened.
It's me.
How did this? It was Jimmy Dore.
Greg, I
should have known.
I'm very powerful, and I've warned people that they better start being nicer to me, or I will throw the next election.
It's like
I got no problem doing it.
The thing is, where are the Democrats? Where are the people for democracy? So look. The Voting Rights Act, and I show this in my film, was won in 1965 because when Lyndon Johnson told Martin Luther King, look, we'll try to get you change the rules a bit, but you ain't getting no Voting Rights Act. And he went across the bridge at Selma, 35,000 people. There are people beaten nearly to death. I have some of them in the film. And they forced the issue. And now we're losing those rights. Again, the Voting Rights Act is being destroyed. So it's a matter of us having another movement for voting rights. We're back 50 years, so there's nothing new under the sun. We got to do it again. That's all.
Wow. Okay. I guess so. We will try to. How many millions of people would have to mobilize for us to change the electoral
process?
Why?
7 million.
Why do you think also there's no pushback? Like after Al Gore lost, he had his cause, which was global warming, right?
Yeah.
Climate change. Hillary Clinton's cause could be getting rid of the Electoral College. Like, why wouldn't she do that?
Well, how about just letting us vote and letting the votes count? I mean, in Wisconsin, which Agent Orange won by supposedly 29,000 votes, we now know from the University of Wisconsin about 300,000 people were barred from voting for several goofy reasons. Mostly they changed the ID laws 2 weeks before the election, so that if you had a gun license with your photo ID, a state license, you could vote. But if you were a student and you had a student ID with your picture on it from the University of Wisconsin, you couldn't vote. Hello. So the gun owners got to vote. If you carried a gun, you could vote. If you carried a book, nah. And so why aren't we fighting? I mean, you'll have a few little stories, but the myth is that the American electoral system is so wonderful. There's a few little problems. But the other thing is that we have to bring back the issue of race and class, and that's behind what's going on here. People, the poor can't vote, students can't vote, black, brown, and Asian Americans. I have a section there called Voting Gangnam Style. They're going after Asian Americans, like that system Crosscheck I talked about, where they use common names. You can imagine if your name is Lee.
Right.
Good luck voting.
Again, so why didn't the Democrats in Wisconsin I mean, I just can't get over the passivity of the Democrats in this situation. I just don't get it. And the Republicans are doing it right out in the open. By the way, they're not even trying. So like when they're trying to get voter ID laws, we all know that is voter suppression. That's exactly why they're not doing that, because there's any kind of voter fraud. There is no voter fraud. There's election fraud, which is different, right?
Yeah, it's the guys controlling the elections would steal the vote. Well, Democrats want to talk about Russia. I was on MSDNC. Oh,
yeah.
Did I mispronounce that?
They had you on?
Believe it or not. But then I gave the wrong answer. They said, just before the election, they said, are you worried about the Russians hacking the voting machines in Ohio. I said the Republicans control the voting machines. They've got the passwords, the access, and the motives. I'm not worried about the Russians. I'm worried about the Ohio Republicans messing with the vote in Ohio. And that was the wrong answer. I was supposed to say, oh, it's Putin sitting there with his old Atari breaking in and changing the vote. Come on.
And so everybody over at MSNBC going along with the McCarthyism right now. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, you're a real journalist. I'm a pretend one. Why aren't they more embarrassed? I don't understand. Like in your like I'm a comedian, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a culture of comedians, and there's a a society. I don't know what the word is escaping me, but isn't there one in journalism, right? Isn't there?
Yeah.
Isn't there a camaraderie, and don't you all kind of look at each other like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Well, what's happening actually it depends which side of the ocean you're on. In Britain, when I'm with BBC or my reports in the continent, in Latin America, in New Zealand, we can't find reporters who think that this isn't just like completely goofy, this Putin mania of the Democratic Party. But what's happened is that the mainstream press is completely in that pocket. It's the new Red Scare.
Yeah, I know.
And you know what the problem is? It's like fluffy. Like, okay, let's say that Putin. Let's say he spent $100,000 on Facebook ads. That's what elected Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton spent $1 billion. $1 billion. And she's saying that, well, I spent $1 billion, but Putin spent $100,000 on Facebook ads, and that was it. I got destroyed. If it wasn't for those $100,000 in ads or some, Comey saying something, you know what, about emails, can I tell you something? I was in Ohio. No one even knows who David Comey is. I was at the plant gates that were shut. James Comey, whatever, or his brother, it's another schmuck. And it's like, they don't know. They don't care. They're at the plant gates that were closed. Donald Trump stood in front of the plant gates, the auto plant at Warren, Ohio, and said, I'm bringing this. NAFTA's toast, day one. I'm bringing all your jobs back. He was lying. He didn't care. He said anything to them. But Hillary was silent. She never went to a plant gate. She was only in the big cities. I talked to some of the top Democratic officials. Unfortunately, they only talked to me off the record, but they said, we begged her on our knees.
Yes.
Talk to working people, for God's sake. Get the hell out of Hollywood. Okay? I mean, I saw her at George Clooney's house. That's very nice. How many votes there? I just was wondering. And she didn't make one appearance in Wisconsin. So what happens is, yeah, they stole the election. Get the film, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, The Case of the Stolen Election. Yes, it was stolen. But I'm going to tell you something. They made it close enough to steal. The Democrats, lost sight of who they're supposed to represent. And so Trump, how does Trump make his money? He makes his money in his casinos by getting working class people to turn over their paychecks. He skins them alive, and they say, thank you, I had a good time. So he knows how to steal from working people. That's his entire wealth. And so he just did it. He just changed it. He just stole their vote through, manipulation of the election process, but also just lying to them. And it had nothing to do with Putin. It had everything to do with he spoke to working people and told them what they wanted to hear. He's lying. One of the things I do in my film, by the way, is the old subtitle was called A Tale of Billionaires and Ballot Bandits. And I actually go and hunt down the billionaires behind Trump. Now, this is important because, remember, Trump only plays a billionaire on TV. He needs real billionaires to have funded his campaign. He was hock up to his hockey sack. Yeah, he has no money. I've known Trump for years, and he's busted all the time. He needs 25 cents from you to go into Starbucks. But he's in debt. He's in debt. So what's happened is that the billionaires started calling the shots. He says, I'm going to cancel NAFTA and bring back the auto plant. Who does he put in charge of renegotiating NAFTA? Wilbur Ross, his commerce secretary, who's the guy who owned the auto plants that he sent to Mexico. And now you're asking this guy to charge himself tariffs on his auto parts. I don't think so. In other words, he completely jacked the working class, Trump. And so now he's
just like Reagan.
Yeah, now he's trying to tell him, he did the Reagan job. So now he's trying to distract him. Little Rocket Man, black guys on their knees, and all the bullshit. But excuse me, sir, you promised jobs day one. Where be the jobs that you were going to bring back to Ohio and to Michigan? Where are those jobs? And that's what's missing. But he was going to, the whole climate, he undid all the climate change executive orders of Obama. And he turns to coal miners behind me. He says, you're going back to work, boys. There's no new coal jobs. Okay, so, it's a con. But I go after the guys who gave him the money, like Steve Mnuchin's partner, this guy, JP, John Paulson. And I hunt him down. I even had I have one hat with a camera in it. You'll see it in the film. It's true. And, so I have a camera in my hat, and I hunt this guy down. I go to a $1,000 a plate dinner in my power boat, looking like I was with Ms. Badpenny, my sidekick, and we look like we're supposed to be there. We look like rich pigs. We look like we would kick the ruling class in the ass. So, and then I grab this billionaire, who, by the way, for protection, the guy who tries to body block me is Mike Milken, the convicted bank swindler,
the junk bond king,
junk bond king, who's out of prison. I can recognize him because he's not allowed to wear his toupee after you go to federal prison. Did you know that?
No.
That's interesting. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So stay out of trouble, Jimmy. But you
Why?
can't,
because that's like a disguise.
You can't. If you're a federal prisoner, you can't wear that stuff. So if you're a felon. So it's true. And so there is the newly bald Mike Milken, who's still worth $3 billion, protecting this vulture, Paulson, whose partner, by the way, is a guy named Steve Mnuchin, who ends up as what? Our Treasury Secretary. Paulson's the guy who drowned Puerto Rico. He's the guy that bought up all the junk bonds in Puerto Rico. He gets 20%. He squeezes that place to death, and he blocked them from fixing their electrical system. So it didn't require a hurricane. Just the big bad wolf huffing and puffing would have knocked down that system. But I go after these guys, and that's what I'm out to do.
Okay. All right. So everybody check out the Best Democracy Money Can Buy updated version out this week. This is super interesting stuff. It's like enraging. It's almost like I don't want to know this information because it makes me feel impotent.
No.
Even more impotent than I normally feel.
It should be political Viagra. It should get you up there.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're doing great work. I mean, this is amazing. I can't believe that more people. I can't believe this is in front page news every day, and I can't believe that this movie isn't a bigger thing than. It's great. It's doing well and everything. I'm sure
it's doing very well, but
it should be on the tips of everyone's tongue.
Yes.
Just like this Russia bullshit. Why wouldn't they pick this up? This is actually real. So why wouldn't Rachel Maddow just devote 40 minutes a day to this, the actual screw up in our electoral system? Because why? Why would it be? And then instead of pushing this Russian narrative, how do people like that have any self-respect anymore? She's a Rhodes Scholar, and she pushes a fucking McCarthyism 40 minutes a day on her show. So, in your community of journalists, does anyone ever get kicked out of that fun? There's shitty, hacky comedians. They're not allowed in our cool guy club.
Yeah, but you have to remember, the mainstream media, like if New York Times, Washington Post, there's what's permitted, what Noam Chomsky called, manufactured consent. There's only so many areas you can go through. I was called yesterday by CNN. They want me on as long as I talk about Russia. And I said, what about black voters? Well, that's race issues. And the reason I'm allowed on MSNBC, because I am with people like Joy Reid or Al Sharpton and others, but where's the pale-face guys? Because they consider the vote theft issue a racial issue, and that ain't their viewers.
The next live Jimmy Dore show is November 6th in Burbank, California, and November 12th in Portland, Oregon. Link for tickets right there.